Bear with me, folks. I'm going to go grab my chair and I'll be right back. What up, Jeremy? All right, I'll grab some tools here. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so this is real. We're gonna try to make this as quick as possible. This is a response to Topher Calico's post. It's probably below this one. A couple hours ago, he asked. He wants to run a rear portal only, meaning he's going to run a AR-44 style front axle and a portal rear axle. So we're going to do a quick, I was going to type it all up, but we'll just do a quick video. We'll just do a quick video and show you the different options. So there's no need to flip the skid, first off. All right, so basically, grab a pointer here. We'll consider this to be the front of the truck, the front of the skid. This would be your input from the motor plate, forward motor plate. This would be your front output, and then rear output. So front input, right? Let's preface this with, this is the 15% overdrive setup. So it's pretty simple. If you look here closely, this transfer case is symmetric, with the exception of the angle, and that's for the angled skids, right? And we can offer a, if you wanted to put this, well, if you buy this for like the G-Speed V1C1 Class 1 chassis, it comes with a shim to bring it up to work with the flat skid. But anyway, it's symmetrical. It's threaded, 3 holes threaded on both sides. They're in 2.5s, okay? These are overdrive plates. 1 second. All right, so these are standard 0 overdrive plates. All right, pretty straightforward, 2 millimeters thick. They the standard or 0 overdrive. These plates can be flipped or put on either side, and it doesn't matter because a 0 overdrive runs a 23 tooth output on both the front and rear. Both the overdrive and the 0 overdrive both run a 12 tooth input gear. All right, so first, before we go any further, if you're running an overdrive T-Case and you want to swap it out to a 0 overdrive T-Case, it's pretty straightforward. Send us an email via our website, and we can set you up with a pair of 0 overdrive plates and a 23 tooth gear, and then you can swap that out and run 0 overdrive. All right, so anyway, like I said, this is the front input, front output, rear output, and all we're going to do is we're going to start with the rear output. Excuse me, we're going to start with the front, where the input shaft and the front output are, and we're going to remove the M2.5 by 6s. So we remove these. We pull this plate off. It can be messy, right? Because they come pre-greased. So just be ready for that. And if the bearings stay on the shaft, that's okay. That's no big deal because you're going to pop the bearings out of this anyway. So this is the 15% overdrive. All right. So we're going to set a paper towel down here. Pretty straightforward. Okay, we're going to remove the rear output shaft. We're going to remove the front output shaft, and if the bearings come with it, it's okay because you're going to flip the bearings anyway. So we've got the front and rear output shaft. Now the input shaft is a square drive shaft for the gear. So the bearing in shaft is captured by an M3 screw with an M3 washer. No need to pull that screw out. You leave that screw in there. We're going to pull the whole assembly. It'll be the shaft, the gear, and the bearing. So you pull the shaft, the gear, and the bearing, and that's what you get. Okay, shaft, gear, and bearing. Set that down. I'm going to clean the grease out of here for the most part. All right, so now we have the rear plate, the center transfer case left. We're going to pop these bearings out. Pop the bearings out. Now keep in mind this is an overdrive plate, so what that means is because the front gear is smaller, the bearing pockets are closer together than the rear output. Okay, so all we need to do, pop these 3 M2.5s out. Like so. We're still looking at the rear of the T-case. You can tell the difference between the front and the rear of the T-case center section because the angle leaned towards the front axle because the skid is angled. So what we're doing here is we're keeping the T-case plumb on an angled skid. That helps your driveline angles. All right. So the rear, we always assemble these on the rear plate first. So we just look at this case plate and we say, what side of the T-case do we want the rear output? The rear output is going to be the furthest away from the input shaft. In Topher's case, in Topher's situation, he wants the rear output. He wants the overdrive, to go to the rear. So the overdrive is the bearing pocket that's closer to the input. So we're looking at the rear of the T-case. All right, we want that gear to go to this left, when you're looking at the rear, to be the left side, right? The rear output. So wipe the grease off, put the 3 screws back in. So basically all you've done is remove the plate and flipped it. The front and rear output shafts are also symmetrical, so no big deal. All right, so now we have the rear plate installed. The bearing pocket closest to the input shaft is your overdrive gear, right? So if you're running a rear portal and a straight front axle, then what you can do is just flip this around and you're good to go. So we're going to pop our bearings back in. So bearings are back in. We grab our input shaft assembly, and it's never changes its location, okay? So the input shaft bearing, input gear, and shaft go back into its hole. So you snap that back into its hole, like that. Now we're going to take the front output, what was the front output, or the overdrive gear, which is the smaller of the two, and we're going to put it to the outward side of the rear plate. Okay, then we'll take the what is the bigger gear, the 23 tooth gear, which Topher wants to go to the front axle, and we'll put it in the place of the front diff. Boom, it's that simple. So now his overdrive is going to the rear. The 23 tooth is going to the front for his. That way he can run the portal in the rear and the AR-44 in the front. So then we need to assemble this plate. So remember, that this was on here like this, which puts the overdrive gear or the smaller gear on this side, but we need to reverse that. So we're just going to pop these out, flip the case, or flip the plate over and put the bearings in it. So now the bearings are in. We've got our smaller gear going to the rear, our bigger gear going to the front. If you look closely, you've got your smaller bearing pocket on the same side, or excuse me, the bearing pocket furthest away on the same side as the big gear, and the bearing pocket closest for the small gear on the same side. We're going to install that again and then put our 3 screws back in it. All right. So basically, we've answered Topher's question. That's how you do that. And then this will mount in the same exact location on the skid. The only difference is that the gears are flipped. So now the overdrive goes to the rear, and the underdrive, I guess you could call it, goes to the front. All right. Same orientation in the case. The case is in the same place on the skid. Done deal. You don't affect your driveline angles. You don't affect your link clearance. You don't affect anything. The only thing you've done is swap the gears on the inside of the case. Okay, that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is we recently released a mirrored skid to run with a 10-3 axle. Let me grab a regular skid. How you doing, Lucy? Snoozing? Okay. So here is the standard skid that comes with the Ford motor mount kit. All right. Transfer case mounts on here like so. Front output shaft is on the passenger side or the right side of the vehicle for a center drop or a right drop pumpkin. So in a 10-3 axle, what we do is we're going to install a left side drop pumpkin or a driver side drop pumpkin. So what we need to do is we have to mirror the motor mount, which is pretty self-explanatory, but we also have to mirror the transfer case. So when we mirror the transfer case, we're going to move the transfer case. We're going to go with a mirrored skid, and it comes in the kit. They're listed on the G-Speed website. So it comes with a mirrored skid. So basically, there's 2 holes here. You're going to move the skid from here, or the transfer case from here to here. And we're also going to, again, remove the plates, and we're going to move the front output shaft to the left side and the rear output shaft to the right side. And we can achieve that because the transfer case is symmetrical. Okay? That's why we went with a 2-plate design, so that you can mirror this thing every which way but Sunday. All right? So all we're going to do, and we're going to use this one for the sake of not tearing apart more than one and have to put it back together. So we're going to start with the front of the transfer case. Remove the 3 M2.5x6s. Remove the front plate. If the bearings stay attached to the shaft, it's no big deal. In fact, if the whole thing comes apart, it's no big deal. Pop your bearing plates out. Do the same for the other shaft. Pull it out. Pull the input shaft assembly out. Pop the bearing. All right, now if you were watching before we put the overdrive to the rear axle, it would look like this. It would look just like this. Your overdrive transmission that you're going to mirror for a left side drop pumpkin would look just like this. The bearing pocket for the front output would be on the passenger side or the right side of the truck. Your input shaft would be in the middle, and your output shaft would be on the driver's side of the transfer case or the left side of the transfer case, and it would be pointing towards the rear. So you're going to pull this out of your rig. you'll install the mirrored skid, and then you'll be at the step that I just was, where you pull this plate off, you pull the gear stacks out, or the gears out, and the shafts, and then remember when we flip this plate to put the overdrive to the rear, we're going to do that again. So in this transfer case, this one here, you'll pull the rear plate off, flip it 180 degrees. So if you look closely, we flip the plate 180 degrees. And we're looking at the back of the transfer case. The front output is closer to the input shaft. Okay. Excuse me. The front output shaft is closer. So we've taken this plate off, we flip it around, now it's on the opposite side. Okay, so when we put it back in the truck, we're golden. Okay. All right, so we flipped our plate. Again, we're going to install the 2 lower bearings like such. We're going to install the input shaft assembly. The input shaft assembly always goes into the back plate at the top. There's no changing it. It never changes. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move our front output, or our overdrive gear, our smaller of the two big gears. It's the smaller one, the 20 tooth, and we're going to move it to the driver's side or the left side of the T-case. And then subsequently, we'll take our big gear, the 23 tooth gear, and we're going to move it to the passenger side or the right side of the transfer case. Just like that. Okay, now once we've done that, we can either slide our bearings over our shafts, like that. We look at our plate. What do we want? Like I said several times now, your overdrive gear is going to be closer to the input shaft than the underdrive gear, and it's obvious in the plate. So there's a couple millimeters between them here or so, and there's 4 or 5 millimeters between them here. So we just need to match these bearing pockets up with the gears. So we wipe the grease off. We press this back onto our bearings like that, and we install the 3 screws. And now we have a mirrored transfer case. Right? So we've mirrored the motor mount, we mirror the transfer case. We pick up a mirrored skid plate that's got the 2 slots. We bolt it in like that. And now we can run a driver's side or a left side pumpkin. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty versatile. As always, if you have more questions, you can post it on the Garage Hack page. The rest of us hacks will be happy to help you out. I'm going to leave it at that. Are there any questions? Okay, so while we're here, check this guy out. We're not going to get into great detail. These are some pretty rough cut prototypes. All the different anodized colors and oxidized shafts and all that jazz are in the air and on their way to me now. But basically what we've got here is we've got a 2-point low that's fully anodized, fully machined. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's the overall thickness is 13 millimeters thick, 36 millimeters tall without the spur gear. These are pretty sweet. These will be, as soon as they land, we'll be assembling and releasing them. There's one thing I want to mention while we're talking about it. Our skid plates that we sell are 1/8 inch thinner than the skid plates that we originally sent out with that we originally sent out with the OG creepers and 2-point lows. So therefore, when I sent this file out, I didn't compensate for that 1/8 inch. So there'll be an 1/8 inch aluminum spacer that puts this back in its original location. So it's going to look like it's an 1/8 inch taller than it used to be, but in fact it's not. It's the same height as it used to be. It's just that the skid is an 1/8 inch thinner than it used to be, if that makes sense. So yeah, might as well put that out there right now. But they came out pretty sweet. Got one installed in here just to check things out. Not a whole lot of room. You can get a little bit of room, but it's super smooth. It's pretty legit, man. All custom gears, all custom shafts. This, like I said, this is a prototype, so the shafts aren't oxidized or chamfered or anything like that. But we went with the same concept as all the other gears that we've been, all the other tiny gears that we've been producing, and that's the square drive. So your idler gear and your input gear are all square drive. The other thing we did is we added a shoulder for the spur plates to butt up against to help keep that wobble straight, to keep it from wobbling. So M3 threads. I don't know if you could see that or not, but anyway, wanted to keep it short. That's pretty straightforward. That's how you move the overdrive to the rear axle if you're running a portal only, and you want to bring the ratios, if you want to make the ratios a little faster, and how you mirror it for a mirrored skid, which you can find those on the G-Speed page for now. He's waiting on me to ship him more skids and brackets for the motor mount. But yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm out. Got stuff to do. Jimmy Town, we do have a price point for them. We're looking at about $150 for a completely assembled transmission and skid plate. $150 plus shipping, and then it does not include a spur. You're going to be responsible. It will come with the slipper plates and the bearing to lock out the slipper plates. But it will not come with a spur gear. And then we recommend the, I believe it's Axial's 56 tooth 32 pitch mated to a 10 tooth pinion gear. I believe the Axial part number, if I remember correctly, is AX31027. AX31027, I think it is. That's a 56-2 spur gear. There is one recommendation that we recommend with that spur gear, though. Yes, AX31027. And hold on, bear with me here. Babe, did you see what I did with those open bearings?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's the spur gear that you'll need. It comes with this chintzy plastic spacer. Thanks, babe. So it comes with this chintzy plastic spacer that sometimes doesn't allow you to pinch down tight on the slipper pads. You'll be responsible for the spur gear and the slipper pads. But we recommend replacing that bearing, or that plastic bushing in here, with a 5x11 by 3 millimeter open. You can find these on teamgaragehack.com. They're $1 a piece. So keep that in mind when you're ordering your parts. If you want one of those, just throw it in the cart. That'll really help keep this thing true. It'll really help pinch the plates. Excuse me. So yeah, thanks to my assistants. Anything else? Otherwise, that's it. All right, I'm out of here. You guys have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And thanks for tuning in.